Well, hello friends. A little late, yes. But am I ready to talk to you about letting it all in? Also, yes. So, I'm going to start talking and see who shows up. And hopefully, I'm in the right place. Let's see. Am I? So there I am. Very quickly, Women Walking the Phoenix Path. My signature program starts on Wednesday, August 16th. And I'm very, very excited about that. And there is a payment plan to get in there. You can get in there for as little as, let me see if I can find it, because I have different payment plans. So you can get in there for as little as $227 a month. And this is a signature, high impact, high commitment group coaching program. And we go for 10 weeks in this program. There are several different, not several, I think there's 3 or 4 different payment plans that I will share with you. I'm going to give you the long link here because that's what I have access to right now so that you can check it out. So why is this important? Because what I'm sharing here is actually part of the first module of Phoenix Path program. So, you know, I know that there's teaching out there that for, you know, from business coaches to other coaches that, don't share your best stuff with people. And I highly disagree. I think you should absolutely share your best stuff freely and openly, because how else are people going to know who you really are? You know, what the culture of your business is, what your mission, your purpose, your passion is all about, unless you really share the real deal stuff that helps people, right? So I believe in doing that. And so what I'm sharing with you here today is preamble to, but also a lot of the good stuff that I share in Module 1 of Women Walking the Phoenix Path program. And we start with Let It All In. And I'm going to say that this program, my Lotus Throne Initiation program, over the last year plus, I've been quietly helping women to reorganize their life, to reorganize the atoms of their consciousness so they can live in an energy and adopt the paradigm of less is more. And now you might be saying, Catherine, that doesn't make a lot of sense if you're talking about let it all in. But if you stay till the end of this talk, it will make sense to you. It will land with you where you're at, hopefully, and give you some insight as to where in your own life can you start right here, right now, today, in this class, after this wisdom share. Start looking at your life through the lens of what we're talking about here, of whittling things down to less is more, in the spirit of letting it all in. So I want to talk first about, I want to try to make this as concise as possible. So I want to talk about less is more and how important it is to adopt this paradigm, probably now more than ever, through a level of conditioning and patterning and programming that I think many, if not all women, can associate with on some level. And that is this myth of the Superwoman, okay? The Superwoman myth is basically this, that have the career, juggle the career, the profession, the professionalism, being on top of your game mentally, having emotional intelligence and maturity, being able to have all the time to make sure the kids' needs are met, that your husband or your mate or your partner's needs are met. You have an immaculate household. Not only that, but you're maintaining vibrant health and you look healthy. You don't look tired. You don't have your hair not all the way dry when you go do lives on Facebook. Having makeup on, looking coiffed, right? And then also having the time to be a good friend, a good wife, a good sister, a good mom, a good businesswoman, a good employee, all the stuff, right? This kind of toxic level of professionalism and perfectionism that we're expected to maintain, okay? But inside of all of that, like all the things, right? The pressure to be the ideal woman who does it all and does it perfectly. This is making us all sick. And not just the women who are, buying and selling this to each other as well, which is even more toxic because we've not only drank the Kool-Aid, but we're selling the Kool-Aid to others. When we say to women, you can do it all, right? You can do it all, you can have it all, and fix that crown, girl, because you're a queen. And you're Superwoman. You can do all the things, right? This ideal, I want to ask you, whose ideal is it? Because I didn't have anything to do with or any say-so in setting this up. There was a time that I did buy into it too, but I've been, quietly pulling myself away from this and fleecing myself of all of these layers and sheaths and overlays and masks and personas that have anything to do with this very toxic culture of the Superwoman, which is a myth. It is chasing an ideal, an ideological perfectionism that does not exist anywhere except in this kind of this toxic pushing of this ideal in social media, in systems and structures. We have it even in movies, in TV shows, right? This kind of immaculate perfection that is a lie. That's a lie. And whose ideal is it? It's not mine. And for many of you listening, it's probably not yours either, but you may have noticed, and you are noticing right now, where you might have, bought into this ideal and maybe even judged other women based on this ideal. She's doing this, but she doesn't really have her shit together here or that and whatever. And we use this as kind of this weaponization of this ideal against each other as women. And so what is it actually doing? Well, it's not actually creating this ideal. It's creating a chasing of this ideal. This ideal does not exist. It's not concretized in the world of form. It doesn't really show up anywhere. We can try to make it look like it is. We're very good at being masters of illusion here on this planet. And women are very good at making things look like they are one thing, but really aren't that at all. We're really good at the kind of smoke and mirrors of this kind of ideal or this persona, and a lot of the things that you see, pushed on social media, this ideal, a lot of that is bullshit anyway. So yes, I'm calling it out, and yes, I want to kind of blast this wide open, because this perfectionism that we're chasing, this idealized way of being that doesn't really exist anywhere except in the constructs of our own mind, and maybe as, pretty pictures and taglines and memes on social media, it doesn't exist in the real world, okay? It's kind of like in the 50s where you had a lot of advertising geared towards, the picture-perfect wife who has the meal prepared for when her husband comes home, and she's also got a tray of martinis in one hand and a tray of Vienna sausages in the other hand. And she's perfectly coiffed and primped and, looking svelte and desirable. And, you know, in it, maybe, you know, the slippers are laid out for the husband, and she's got his pipe packed for him to sit in front of the fireplace that's already roaring with the newspaper there. Like, that was a fictionalization, an ideal that was also bought and sold to a lot of women at that time. And I want to tell you that it's still the same shit today. And whether we're walking around calling ourselves queens and superwomen, and, you know, telling ourselves we can have it all, right? A cooked meatloaf, right? It's the same shit. It's the same shit as what now, 70 years ago, and even before that, okay? So, but do you ever notice that with all of that, with all of the pushing of this weird, bizarre, idealized agendas of the perfect woman, the superwoman, that not once does anyone talk about the softness or the gentleness and the stillness of being with the true essence of yourself and having pleasure in life along with those other ideals. How often do you hear that mentioned? That pleasure for the sake of it. So when we talk about this kind of queendom and this superwoman ideal, what we've learned to do as women, and this is going to hurt probably a little bit, it's going to sting, but just sit with it. Don't try to run away from it. Just be with the discomfort of it for just a second, because you're never going to move past this, and you're never going to move to this place where you want to strip all these bullshit layers and masks and personas away, unless you can sit with the discomfort of the truth of this. So here's what we've learned to do as women with this kind of queendom and superwoman ideal that is toxic as fuck. We have learned to sublimate pleasure. We've learned to sublimate pleasure. And what does that mean? Well, sublimation is a psychoanalytic theory that we've learned to divert or modify a very primordial, very instinctual impulse, which is to feel the softness and gentleness. And this is a primordial impulse. This is a deep-rooted, instinctual, cellular coding impulse for women to feel the softness and the gentleness of the currents of life, because we are naturally intuitive. This is an instinctual impulse for women that we've been taught to sublimate into something that is a culturally or socially higher ideal that we should want. Meaning, we've learned to sublimate pleasure, like, you know, if I'm living the life of this queen, this badass, this boss lady, boss girl stuff really rubs me the wrong way too. The superwoman has time for a spa treatment and a mani-pedi. Am I knocking those things? Absolutely not. I've made it a priority to get a spa treatment every month. But that's because I really like it. Not because that's an ideal of what I should want and it's being dictated to me from some force outside of me. I need hands on my body because I don't like to be touched. Full disclosure, I don't really like being touched intimately. It's something that is part of a deep-seated thing for me. But getting a massage is a way for me to soothe my nervous system. It's a way for me to reconnect with my limbic system that misfires a lot in order for me to feel a connection with other humans. And getting a massage, and I've even gotten myself to a point where I can be bathed by another person. This is something that I need in order to be a functioning human being and to really tap into my empathic abilities and to feel the fullness of life. I do this whole spa treatment, and it's wonderful, and it makes me feel whole, and it makes me feel human, and it makes me feel connected to the rest of humanity when I do it. But I'm talking about where we've learned to sublimate pleasure as women with this bullshit pursuit of this superwoman or boss lady, badass woman, queen ideal, is that we're being told that pleasure is, you know, buying the right clothing, bespoke clothing and handbags that are made for us and God knows fucking where. It's still cow skin, no matter where it's made. Or, you know, having all of the right objects in our home and, you know, the right, you know, placement of things in our life. And that is supposed to make us feel whole and fulfilled and satisfied. We have learned as women in this bullshit ideal of the Superwoman myth to sublimate our own pleasure for the sake of what is socially or culturally acceptable as pleasure, to make us, again, fulfill that persona, that ideal of, well, the immaculate household is me having all of these things in it. My immaculate life of pleasure means I have the right cosmetics and the right makeup and the right hairdresser and all of those things that are really superficial, that are, you know, and there's nothing wrong with having material stuff if that really legit makes you happy. But how many times have we filled our lives up with stuff, with shit, with baggage, and we still find that no matter what amount of stuff that there is there, it doesn't fill up this gaping chasm and void in the center of our being. Is this resonating for anyone? And this includes our own libido, this includes our own sexual pleasure, but I'm not talking about something just like that. I'm talking about, yes, sexual, romantic pleasure with friends, like real connections instead of people we network with, or, you know, a real connection to ourselves, a real interpersonal relationship that feels intimate and wholesome and satisfying and fulfilling. I'm talking about that level of pleasure where you can walk around outside in nature, by the water, in a forest, by a babbling brook, and being able to shut off the monkey mind for a fucking second about all the productivity you're supposed to be involved in, and just enjoy the abundance of that moment. I'm talking about that level of softness, of stillness, of presence, of interfacing with the eternal now right there in the face without thinking of like, it's all a lie. That you can be at peace with yourself. And I will tell you something very honestly. All that shit that's built into the Superwoman myth, the badass boss lady myth, the queendom myth, it is all about chasing. And always and ever, what you chase comes from a deep disconnect of an energetic frequency connection. And so that what you chase will continue to elude you all the more. And that keeps us very busy as women, being in this ideal of the superwoman or the boss lady or the queen, right? In her queendom. Because if we're busy in the productivity and the busyness of chasing an ideal that we're never going to get, it's like chasing the dragon, right? This ideal that we're never going to get a handle on, that we're never going to idealize, that we're never going to concretize, then that keeps us so busy that we can't even see ourselves for who we truly are, because the powers that should not be certainly don't want women to do that. Because the second we stop looking the other way and going, squirrel, and we have a minute, a fucking second, to focus on ourselves and where we really feel disconnected from ourselves and disconnected from life as a whole. And women are really, really good detectives. We are excellent fucking detectives. So the second we start sleuthing out where we feel this disconnect and start finding this, and the answers are all right there, we start saying, hey, wait a minute. This is really fucked up. I better do something about this. I'm gonna get on the phone. I'm gonna call my girls and we're gonna do something about this. Society doesn't want that. The pleasure of ease, yes. pleasure of ease. So you can achieve more when you let go of your will to pursue or chase this ideal. When you get on this kind of carousel of want, it's a real quick trip, right? And a lot of us are really good at getting what we want. But we're from this constant moving carousel of want and pursuit and chasing of these materialistic and superficial ideals. We're pretty good at getting them. But is that the fucking point? Is that why we're here? To just keep getting on the carousel? Woohoo! Here we go around again. On the manifestation carousel, and I'll get this thing and I'll have it. Now I have it. Okay, I'm on to the next thing and on to the next thing. But where is your pleasure in that? And here's the thing that really, really hurts to hear. I don't lob softballs when I wisdom share. Here's the thing. We've been so good at sublimating pleasure for so long and pursuing this culturally acceptable or culturally higher or socially more acceptable activity or ideal. We've been so good at pursuing that we can't even remember what it is that gives us pleasure. On a very individualistic level. Because what gives Nicole pleasure might not give me pleasure. What gives me great pleasure and peace and stillness within may not be what gives Shantae pleasure, or who else is here? Or Marissa pleasure, right? So what does that mean? We've been on this carousel for so long that we don't even know what we fucking want. And again, we're really good detectives, we're really good sleuths, so we just need to divert our attention from that and pull back, fleece ourselves of some of these layers and some of these tethers that we have in cords of connection to sublimating pleasure, the socially acceptable or culturally acceptable pleasure that we should have, you know, the bespoke clothing, buying special perfumes, or having the right objects in our home, or the right furniture, or the right fucking interior decorator, whatever that shit is, right? That just feeds, and it's a cog in the machine of the materialism on this planet even more and more and more, that just allows us to feel. The more shit we have, I think it's a direct correlation with how empty we can feel. At least it is for me, and I'm a natural minimalist. But we've done this so much that we forgot, or maybe we're not in touch with at all, what really gives us pleasure, what really gives us joy, what we do really want. And if you can sit with the truth of that for a second, you might be asking yourself, well, if I could let go of my will enough to keep wanting, to keep chasing, to need to hold on to everything, because we're so afraid of who we might be without the stuff, without the tethers, without what's socially or culturally, structurally, societally acceptable. If I stop worrying about that for a second, if I stop tethering my energy and cording my energy to that for even a second, maybe I could be a good detective and find out what it is I do really want. And so here's what happens. You realize you can achieve more and allow more in life that does actually align with the unique energetic signature of you. If you just let go of more and more and more of the things that you've built up to fulfill some sort of expectations or ideal that exists outside of you. We have to stop sublimating pleasure. And we as women owe it to ourselves to go into the place where we can feel the stillness, where we can feel the gentleness, where we can feel the softness, because that's when we're really in tune with and intuitively aligned with the currents, the deep currents of life that are guiding us towards the things that we do truly desire to have, the pleasure we do truly want to experience. And it is about letting go of more and more and more. And when you think you're done, you're not. You let go of some more. So when I say I've been quietly helping women reorganize themselves and reorient or recalibrate themselves to an energetic of less is more, this is what I'm talking about. Because the more we fleece ourselves of all that we are not, and we can voluntarily unbecome that, we let it all in. And what are we letting in? The truth and the core essence of who we truly are. The ideas and the truth about what does actually bring us pleasure. What does actually bring us peace. And here's the secret. Once you allow peace, everything else falls into place. It's not once you allow money. It's not once you allow the ideal relationship. It's not once you allow the perfect home. It's not once you allow yourself to have the perfect car. It's not once you allow yourself to have perfect clothing. All of those things are things we chase. They can show up naturally, organically, beautifully, seamlessly, but they follow on the heels of the peace and the softness and the gentleness that you feel within. And the only way to get to that peace is to liberate yourself of all the things that you are not. It is about unbecoming. And I know that some of you are saying, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with having this or that. I'm not arguing that. I really like this. I really like my mani-pedis. I really like my bespoke clothing. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking those things. But what I'm saying is, if you want to feel truly fulfilled by those things, instead of just another way to sublimate your own pleasure by chasing these things on a material and superficial level, the peace has to precede all the other stuff. Does that land? I hope. So letting it all in is not the same as doing it all, being it all. That's just more of the Superwoman myth and the this bullshit and toxic ideal. Letting it all in is not about squashing our boundaries that we work so hard to put into place. It is not about that. What I'm really saying here, and getting down to the nitty-gritty of this, is we've diverted or modified so much of what we truly want for the sake of holding up an ideal that we had no say-so in setting up. And we've done it for so long that we don't even know what we like anymore. We don't even know what we really want anymore. We don't even really have a connection with what gives us pleasure anymore. Remember, when we're being preached to about that ideal, how many times are we being told that doing nothing is actually a badge of honor? It's the opposite, isn't it? It's about being as productive as possible. Being the Superwoman doesn't mean taking time to source out your own inner pleasure and tuning out or turning off from everything else. That's not something that's preached in that ideal. Because the second you do that, or the second that that ideal gives you license to do that for yourself, you start interrogating your own beliefs about this Superwoman myth that you've been buying into. And as being a natural sleuth, a natural detective, which is as much of a part of your inherent being as anything else being a woman, you'll start to be like, this is bullshit. Who can do this? Nobody. Nobody. And that's the biggest joke of all, that no one is meeting this ideal. No one on this planet is meeting this ideal. Not one woman. And yet we're all striving or chasing it to one degree or another. We all have some fantasy about it. And, you know, from the time that we're little girls, I know that I grew up with this, you know, it's this badge of honor to do it all, to have the perfect career, be the perfect soulmate partner, the perfect mother, the perfect employee, the perfect sister, daughter, the perfect cook, have the perfect body, the perfect face, the perfect hair, the perfect clothes. Oh my God. Who can keep up with that? Nobody. And so in order to really see where we're buying into it, we have to start stripping it away layer by layer, piece by piece. Letting it all in, then, is not about doing it all, being it all, and not even about having it all. It's not even holding it all. We're not meant to hold anything. And that's another bullshit ideal that women have. We're not meant to hold anything. Like we're supposed to hold space for other people. No, we're supposed to let things move through us. And I got it wrong too. So don't feel bad about yourself for, getting it wrong and needing to hold it all and wondering why you can't do it. Because we're not meant to hold anything. We're meant to allow life's moments to pass through us. The experience of life is something that is moving through us. We are not moving through life. Life is moving through us. And when we don't let that happen, we feel like we have to figure it all out for ourselves and everybody else, that we have to do it all, manage it all, cope with it all. That's not what I'm talking about when I say let it all in. I'm talking about let the fullness of life flow through you without keeping it, without attaching to it, without creating meaning about it that somehow limits yourself or your experience of life. I'm talking about letting it all in and pass through you, because this is how we are meant to experience the fullness of life. But if you're pursuing all these bullshit ideals that you had no say-so in setting up, you'll find that you're holding on to things. Categorizing yourself, compartmentalizing yourself, labeling yourself, limiting yourself, creating more resistance, where you're pushing back at life, saying, oh, no, I can't possibly do that because I have to be doing this. Who says? Whose ideal is this? It's not mine. And I'll bet you dollars to donuts, it's not yours either. And take it in. And I had to really sit with this. For a while, I didn't even know what I liked. I didn't even know what I wanted. But if we take even like 5 minutes, less than that, 2 minutes, and we turn off all the fucking water spouts and all of the talking heads telling us what we should want, what should give us pleasure, if we can tune that way, way down so the volume is almost nil, we can finally hear the undercurrents of our own deep superconscious talking to us, then we'll know. We'll know what we really want. We'll know who we truly are. So this allows us, when we do this, to re-experience life. And when I say let it all in, here's what I also mean. If you didn't know what you liked, or if you liked something or not for so long, if you could start over from experience, not from scratch, and let all of life pass through you without all your filters of what you think you don't want, or you think you like, or you actually might not like at all, and you look at everything with fresh eyes, a fresh perspective, a new way of looking at things through a lens of, I'm only taking on less is more. I'm only taking this on in my life because I will experience more of the fullness of me if I feel this need to be less productive, to pursue less of this ideal that I had no say-so in setting up. If I'm taking on less responsibility, less busyness, then I can really see who I truly am. Because for once, she'll have room to fucking breathe. For once, this version of me has room to speak, to say what's on her mind, to get out what's needing to get off her chest, to be off her chest. This version of me can finally come up to the surface and see the light and see what's going on and say, nope. I really don't like that. But if we still have all these filters in place, we can't be in this place of re-experiencing life all over again as if for the first time, where we can really look at things at face value, beyond the filters of what we should want, beyond the materialism we should be striving or chasing for. Then we can really see, oh, I like that. I didn't think I liked that before, but I actually do like that. Or, I was told to like that, but I realize I really don't. I really don't. It doesn't sit with me. It's like finding yourself for the very first time. And letting it all in is really being with what is. Meaning, beyond the filters, you can see reality as it is, not reality as you need to be, not reality as the person you should be, not reality through this lens of perfectionism and chasing and striving for an ideal that doesn't fucking exist. And when you can do this, when you can really see life as it is, and discern instead of judge, without the filters and veils of perception, that's the real sign of emotional maturity. And emotional maturity is equal to spiritual maturity. And when we do that, we start to discern and make decisions and choices that align with the truth and the essence of who we really are, instead of making choices and decisions where we keep sublimating our own pleasure, we keep sublimating our own peace, we keep sublimating our own level of stillness and softness and gentleness that we all deeply, deeply desire within us as women. Like, when's the last time you felt really soft and gentle with yourself and you're okay with it? Instead of thinking that the softness or gentleness was maybe a sign of too much vulnerability, too raw, too weak. That's something we've kind of bought and sold to ourselves as well. So I want to tell you that letting it all in has everything to do with having this open heart where you're feeling that strength within you of your own inner power, your own inner light, your own inner sun, blazing bright with such illumination that it feeds up from the lower chakras where we're locked into want and we're locked into, deep earthly desires, where the energy can rise up from the solar plexus and go into the heart. And we move into this kind of softness and gentleness, and we find that being in our peace is the real key to everything else that we're asking for. When we feel that softness and that gentleness and the vulnerability of being able to face life, to be with life as it is, not as how we need it to be. Being with life, not how we think it should be, but just being with life. There is no perfect life. There's just life. Everything else is an illusion and smoke and mirrors. And if we can just be with life with an open heart, we can really be with this place of, I see where this thing is destroying my peace. I see where that energy, that need to be this person or fulfill some other person's needs or society's needs in some way that doesn't really align with what gives me peace, I can let it go. And I don't have to experience a feeling of panic or worry or anxiety because I'm not trying to fulfill some ideal that doesn't actually exist. I don't have to feel the worry and the panic of, oh my God, I'm not going to be approved of or accepted, because I'm no longer a stranger to myself, where I sublimate my own pleasure, or I lease it out for the pursuit of society's or culture's standards. And we realize the greatest paradox of all, which is when we do more of that, and I know some of you are like, that sounds really selfish, but I want you to hear me out here. There is no other way for you to be of service, to be available, to be emotionally pure, spiritually pure, if you aren't taking care of your own support, your own nourishment, your own nurturing first. And this Superwoman ideal, and buying into that over and over, we've learned ourselves out of this truth that we are the source of our own nourishment, our own support, our own nurturing. And that treating ourselves to the best in life and really pampering ourselves starts with, what do I need to feel loved? Because a lot of the pursuit of the Superwoman ideal comes from a place of not only seeking approval outside of us, but it's just a mirror outside of us for where we don't feel lovable already within. And I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you it from experience and from the experience of women in walking the Phoenix path, is that when you find this kind of peace and you realize that everything falls into place on the heels of being in this peace, this softness, this stillness, this gentleness with yourself, where you pamper yourself, where you support yourself, where you self-nourish, where you self-nurture, maybe where you can be the mom and the dad to yourself that you never had in your life, then it becomes really, really fucking crystal clear very quickly where there are things that you're involved in outside of you that are robbing you of that are pulling your energy from that in very distracting, very toxic ways. And when you start defunding, meaning you stop putting your energetic output towards chasing that ideal or fulfilling that need for approval or acceptance outside of you, you refund more and more of your energy back to yourself. That gets repurposed for more self-nourishment, more self-nurturing, more inner peace. And if you haven't figured out yet that this is what it's really about, that it is about the peace that you feel with yourself, and if you can feel that wholly and fully, maybe even for the first time in your life, it becomes a mirror. And you adopt this kind of equanimity where peace within matches the peace without. And it is then a natural process, because you're going to have to practice with this and get used to it at first, of letting go of more and more of the tethers and the cords to things outside of you that make you want to feel more productive, or it's a badge of honor to be productive or busy in life. It's going to take some practice to let that stuff go at first, because you will deal with grief for a former version of self. And we've had to be many, many women to get us to where we are right now. And don't discount her. Don't dishonor her. Lay flowers at her feet and thank her. But also realize that those versions, those many versions, those many thousand faces and masks that you had to wear that got you here, they were all useful to you. They were all measures of your own extension of inner nourishment and inner support for yourself so that you could survive. But those versions of you aren't sufficient to take you in a place where you want to go, which is to thrive. They were built for one purpose, to help you survive, to help you get through, to help you cope, to help you manage. But they aren't sufficient for taking you where you want to go, into a place of thriving. They don't hold the energetic capacity. They don't have the frequency connection. They're not able to be connected to that vibration that is so fluid with the currents of life as to be able to have those energies move through without being re-traumatized by them, if that makes sense. So you've got to invent. And not even invent, but be brave enough to let everything go so you can see that she's been there the whole time. So in a way, it's not reinvention at all. It's about re-experiencing life for the first time from her eyes, this true core essence of you that is safe with softness, that is safe with vulnerability, that is okay with gentleness, that is okay with slowing down, that is okay with not doing, that is okay with not constantly living up to some ideal that exists outside of her. She's always been in there. I'm struggling with the deep-seated belief that I'm abandoning someone when I choose me. I understand that. I understand that. But you can't ever truly be there and really be you if you are thinking to not take care of my needs first and be with prioritizing my need for safety, my need for security, my need for stability first. Then you will always be a caricature of yourself taking care of someone else. It'll always be a really truncated, contracted version of you, like an automaton. Someone is very good at carrying out the day-to-day tasks, but it's not really you. It's kind of a robotic or clone-like version of you. And if there are people in your life that you truly, truly love and want to see them thrive as well, do you want to show up as any less of yourself than who you truly are in order to be there for them? Because that's the ultimate disservice. We think that we're doing a service by showing up as less than ourselves for other people, but the ultimate disservice to our community, our family, is showing up as someone who is lesser than, an automaton, a robot, someone who is sleepwalking through life. How can you ever really see other people if you're not ever willing to completely see and honor and value yourself? You can't, because everything is a mirror. So you've got to be able to see yourself fully and completely and totally if you want to be able to truly interact with people, seeing them in their true essence as they truly are. That's what we don't get. A lot of us don't get that. And it's okay, we're learning, we're figuring it out. And the only way to truly get to this is when you have done the work. You have done the work to refund all that energy back to you. Where you've been in that energy of self-betrayal, self-abandonment, self-negation for so long, you start having that energy come back to you and get refunded to you. You start living that essence of self. You'll realize there's no other way you want to live your life. And it is a process. At first, it's a practice. But then the more and more you feel this way, the more and more you feel into this softness, this gentleness, this everyday relationship with your own self-nurturing, because you give it all to yourself. No one's giving you something outside of you. You give it all to yourself. You allow, accept, and then you grow to expect. And the true thing about manifestation is what you expect will show up. It's not what you keep saying, I intend to, or I want, or I desire. No, those are still an energetic mismatch. When you truly expect something to just show up, it does. Because whatever the subconscious mind truly expects, that is the reality that you will receive. Every time. Every time. Those of you who didn't read my quote the other day, let me see if I can find it. I think I put it up last night. This amazing quote from Elsie Lincoln Benedict, who was a woman suffragette in the 20s and way beyond her time in terms of making that psychological connection with what really goes on in the subconscious. She says, our supreme subconscious wish is never for any specific thing or person, but for a condition, a certain avenue of self-expression. So think about just wanting something like money. It's not even the money that you really want, right? It's not the thing. It's not the object of money. Like, what good is it if you were to look in the background of my office and I had just piles and piles and piles and stacks of money back here? So what? So what? I mean, you might think, oh, God, she's so wealthy. How amazing that must feel. But if I'm not doing anything with it, if I'm not funding it towards you know, alleviating all of my debt and, you know, purchasing things that allow me to, you know, feel more stable or secure in my life, then it's just a pile of money. It's just an object. It doesn't mean anything. I have to give it purpose towards enabling some condition in my life. And what you want with the money is always and ever symbolic of something your subconscious is craving as a condition of being. For me, that's freedom. I equate having more than enough money with freedom. And also peace, because I'm not constantly worried about, well, where's that next paycheck, that next client going to come from? If I'm not worried about that, then I have peace, don't I? So it's the condition of peace. It's the condition of freedom. That's always and ever what we're really after. If it's a soulmate partner, it's not that, you know, you want the perfect husband or girlfriend or whatever. It's about the condition of, I feel a connection with another human being that feels so profound and enlivening. And it activates my entire being to feel more purposeful, more creative, more aligned with the goodness and fulfillment of life. That's the condition, right? And when we get really honest with ourselves about that, we start realizing where we might be chasing those things, right? The superficiality of the money and more clients. Well, what do those things represent to you? What's the condition that you want, right? And when you have this place of peace within you, you can objectively evaluate those things. Your heart is open, your mind is decluttered. Those deep fears that you have where you're trying to constantly protect yourself against life's knocks, those are gone. Only then, when you have that peace, can you really see who you truly are, what you really want, what brings you pleasure, what conditions you are desiring truly to make your life feel more complete, more satisfied, more fulfilled. It's the peace. Because you finally shut everything else down that doesn't align with that keeps interfering with your level of objectively evaluating life and your place and your purpose and your mission in it. This is where we start in Women Walking the Phoenix Path. This is where we start to re-experience life. And everything about Women Walking the Phoenix Path is about some women who are coming to this work have already blown everything up, where they realize the Superwoman myth, finally, that it is a myth. And there was a moment of self-interrogation, a moment of cracking open because of something painful in life that allowed more of the light to come in. We got to be in that moment, as I illuminated earlier in this call, that like, hey, this doesn't match up. I can finally wake up to this. I can finally see this now. A lot of the women who are in this program also got to a place of such frustration of trying to keep up with a really ridiculous and toxic ideal. And they're tired and sick of being tired and sick, right? They realize that the best that life has to offer is something that is more pure as a condition within, that condition being a sense of peace, a sense of freedom, a sense of stillness, a sense of supreme self-nurturing and self-nourishment, meaning it's self-generated, and that it's not coming from all these things that we've been chasing. It's coming also from a kind of reaching this glass ceiling with these societal norms, these sociological norms, these cultural norms, these religious, dogmatic bullshit ideals that keep trying to push us down and oppress us and suppress us and repress us. And we are sick and tired of that as well. And we're asking, this can't be it. There has to be more. Isn't there more? And so there's a lot of reasons why women come into this program, but ultimately it's because they want to start over with a fresh perspective, to look at life with fresh eyes, with an open heart, to stop trying to protect the thorn in the side that they've put there maybe decades ago, because it's really hard to maintain a life where you're protecting yourself and protecting this level of pain within you, where women are realizing that where they've been taught that this or that should be enough for them, they're finding it's not. And how do I get my sense of pleasure back and feel entitled to embody that sense of pleasure and showcase it, so that maybe I can be a beacon or a pillar or a showcase for other women and show them it's okay and it's safe and it's right for them to do it too. There's a lot of reasons women join this program. But I will tell you, one common denominator of being in this program is that your life is going to change. You're going to look at life very differently. You're going to have a different level of engagement with life. You're going to be re-experiencing life because you're recalibrating your whole energetic. And to be quite honest, a lot of the women in this program and those of you who are aspiring to be in it, you've already moved into a different frequency. You just haven't figured out how to land that into the real world in a very hands-on way yet. And so this program is very instrumental in that. So we start Women Walking the Phoenix Path on Wednesday. 1:30 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays is when we meet for the next 10 weeks after that. You can get in for as little as $227. This is an incredible, incredible opportunity to be in this space with other like-minded women and to have a community and to be able to use each other as support, as levels of nourishment and nurturing, as we witness each other and divinely witness each other go through this sea change. And here's the thing, this is happening on this planet, whether you're on board with it or not. This massive sea change for women is a foregone conclusion. And so you can either participate in it and be very involved in it and be very intentional and deliberate with it, or you can just allow yourself to be blown about by a windsock and say, well, I'll just be with what happens and I'll deal with it as it comes. How much of your life have you lived with that kind of sensibility, and how's that working out? So there it is. There it is. That's as much of a hard sell as I give on my programs. But I hope that whether you're joining Women Walking the Phoenix Path or not, I hope that these words resonated and landed with you in a way where you can start constructively interrogating your own beliefs about what it is to be a woman, what it is to be a woman in this time, what it is to hold a certain level of power as a woman. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Where you can interrogate your own beliefs about how you're allowed to feel pleasure or showcase pleasure or talk about pleasure, where you might be sublimating that in your life right now, and maybe start shifting and changing that for yourself. So lots of love to you all. Thank you for being here. Mwah. Bye-bye.